Hi, I'm Barbie Romero, the director of programming at Media Post. Welcome to our Brand Insider series, Backstage exclusive. This is your chance to ask our past brand insiders what's on your mind. Today, our spotlight is on Albert Thompson, Managing Director of Digital Innovation at Walton Isaacson. Welcome, Albert.
Hey, happy to be on the show. Thank you for inviting me on.
Yeah, glad to have you. And you're like a veteran of our summit, so you've been to many of our summits, and we have some great questions for you from our attendees. One of the questions, as like an expert on innovation, is what is an emerging media trend that you're most excited about? What do you think is overhyped?
Wow. Um, Probably most excited about is I would say the development of AI agents. And the reason why I say that is when you're in the agency business, you're all about making decisions. That's the whole premise of it. But I
Yeah.
think what we found is a lot of complacency in the agency world, which hence why there's such a appetite for automation of it. And as I posted many times, these AI agents are going to take up agency. The decisions we didn't want to make, the innovations we didn't want to do, machines are going to start to push the sector to do it. And I think a lot of it's going to be brand led, where they start to uncover and really decipher these are the movements that we should have been making or we need to make. These are
Mhm.
the media bets we need to make. These are the things related to audience intelligence and understanding we needed to, instead of people doing the two things that they've always done, doing what's most popular and doing what they did yesterday.
Mhm.
So I think that's the one, that's the facet of innovation I'm probably the most excited about.
Yeah.
I think the overhyped nature in the same conversation of everything artificial intelligence is exactly when all these things are actually going to show up. I think what people fail to realize when they look back at history, it all comes down to where the consumer mindset is. There are a lot
Yeah.
of innovations that came, but the consumer wasn't there. And we watched entire companies come before some of the walled gardens, be in place, poorly timed, go out of business, and then the existing companies that are in place hit the time and the execution precisely, and it's why they're as dominant as they are. So I think when people start looking at innovations like robotics, synths, the real replacement of human resourcing, it's like,
Mhm.
yeah, but there's a faction of this country that's not even double tapping on anything AI. So I
Yeah.
think the overhype is the speed at which it's coming and going to displace, and that the consumer recognize that is ready for it versus what the media machine that's pumping it is saying how fast it's coming.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like during the summits, a lot of people talk about it like as a conceptual thing, and then to practice it is like another completely different
Yes.
ballpark. So that's the next question is how do you think marketers should be using it in practical ways? So if someone's really interested in, let's say, the AI agents piece today, like what would be your advice to start like researching?
Wow. Yeah, I think the biggest thing with artificial intelligence is framing the mindset of how to think about it, how to look at it. So I spend a lot of times punching through hours and hours of podcasts with experts in the fields much more intelligent than me that
Hmm.
broke down how to think about it. So on one end of the spectrum, like, oh, it's a tool. And yes, we are using a tool. And then you have other philosophers talking about, no, this is an inherently new species that has never existed on the planet. I don't look, we're not there yet. I think what you have to start to look at it is as a resource. And what I mean
Hmm.
as a resource is how do you onboard it? How do you evaluate it? How do you give
Hmm.
it outcomes the same way you would a new hire? I think a lot of people are flirting around with artificial intelligence to fill in gaps in their own personal competency or to give them horsepower to get tasks done. But I think the thing that's omnipresent emerging is it being programmed as a resource where you didn't have to hire X person, or the work that normally went to interns and went to admins is now replaced with the machines and vis-a-vis automation. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that we didn't want to do that anyway.
Yeah.
So when you think about some of the things that take place in a call center or customer support and the randomized questions that people get because they're trying to find their way through that, people, those are jobs people didn't work anyways, sort of the rote work. I think
Hmm.
that's a huge white space in which a lot of these platforms tools will start to take up agency and make the decisions and then qualify and move them to the place. Same place when you call your cell phone company. You can't even get a live agent on the phone
Yeah.
until you get to an X level of QA back and forth, or you have a major issue. I think that's what we're going to see in much of the overall professional landscape. The
Hmm.
low hanging engagement will be more than just chatbots here and there. There'll be more sophisticated agents that take a lot of the road work and move the professional work up a few levels.
Mm. Yeah, like in the upfronts event, one of I forgot which agency, but one of the chief technology officers was saying how everyone's going to eventually have their own agent um to work with. Like when they're onboarding by HR, they're gonna also
Yes.
give you an AI assistant to help you with your job. So that's where the world's moving towards. I guess I didn't know I needed an assistant, but I guess so. I do
Yeah.
use ChatGPT though. I will say that. So
Yeah.
it's really helpful. So I do see that actually happening eventually, eventually down the line where that's where
Absolutely.
agency wants to create its own AI, they're gonna do that. So yeah.
Yeah. We could all use a mini me. I mean, that's not lost on anyone.
Yeah.
And if we look, if we all get one to accelerate what we do to get the more important creativity, innovation, and thinking. The biggest thing I always tell people that I have that a lot of people don't have is I have think time because I built it into my workflow, my process, just as someone who is expected to be somewhat of a knowledge person in a series of domains. Not
Mhm,
everybody has think time for a series of reasons.
mhm.
And I think the ability of having machine assist to give everyone think time is going to be a huge thing that could accelerate business.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, that's a great take. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, like to have a little bit more time to be on that creative front. So yeah. Well, thanks for answering that question. And our
Mhm.
next question, we're shifting now towards something completely different, tariffs.
Okay.
So tariffs keep on going back and forth, and that's making a lot of marketers nervous about the price increases, and they're not. Sometimes it's on, and then sometimes it's off. So let's say that they have to do a price increase. How do you manage that without damaging your brand equity and consumer trust? I actually saw a brand recently, a chocolate brand. I'm not going to name which one. They actually put an email out saying, "Oh, we're going to increase our price in the next week." And then I guess the tariffs were pulled because then they were like, "No, we're not going to do it anymore." And as a consumer, that feels kind of like odd. So because you're like, "Oh my God," like this back and forth kind of thing is
Yep.
makes it kind of makes or breaks consumer trust. So I don't know if you have any advice on that for marketers dealing with that nowadays.
Yeah, it's a great conversation. I mean, look, it, it's a misnomer if you think organizations, corporations are going to just absorb the inflationary or trade level cost. That will almost always be passed down to the consumer, except for the companies who are very high on doing goodwill. And in
Mhm,
the capitalist society, it's not realistic. What brands are doing is conditioning the consumer that these are uncertain times, kind of like COVID. It's open. No, it's closed. Wear a mask. Don't wear a mask. So what
mhm,
do? You just carry around a mask at all times, so you know whether you have to pull it out of your pocket or your bag, what have you. We're doing the same thing with consumer pricing. It's almost a greater flexibility model. We're creating elasticity. The candy bar was look, they're $2.50, and they're saying they can go to $2.99. By the way, the airport they're like $3.99. So what are we talking about anyway? It's like a
mhm,
tariff at every airport across the country. But that way, the consumer dynamically can understand is being primed and prepped for. You just don't know what today is going to bring. That's not a new tactic, but it's probably smart enough to get the consumer mindset ready for the fluidity for which they will have to pay for said goods. The other thing is consumers are now being conditioned that to only spend money on marked up products that are
mhm,
worth the money. So when they say, I don't want to consume that, it's not worth the calories, a lot of that is going to happen across the range, across all categories. Consumers are going to say, that's not worth the calories anymore. It was when it was cheap or cheaper, but now
mhm,
with the markup level expense of it, you can see that it's going to be worth it. The
mhm,
brands we're going to applaud are the ones that built brand. Okay. A lot of brands have been out there in a transacting mode. Here's a product, here's what it costs, go buy it here. But the ones that built brand have greater elasticity through the ups and downs, the downturns. Why luxury goods tend to do so well because they just dial up the scarcity model. So my
mhm,
recommendation to brands is you need to build brand in uncertain times, and in particular in certain pricing, so that you are still part of the primary consideration set. People will always make time for their favorites. The same thing that people always say: you make time for what's important to you, and people will
mhm.
spend on what is still important to them. And I think that's the model that needs to be exercised in the marketplace. Beyond the conditioning of this could be an up and down sort of pricing war or state of flux. But the idea that you have to get back to really building brand equity. And in the recent era, particularly the programmatic era, a lot of brands just haven't done that. And I think they're going to pay the price when they start to look at the financial outcomes as we get into the tail end of this year.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, great insights. And our next one is on attention metrics. So, what is your take on attention metrics? That's been like an ongoing topic for the last, I want to say, maybe year or so. Now that people are moving on from impressions and reach, what do you still think that's the future? Should we looking for something? Should we be looking for a different kind of metric out there other than attention? How do you even define it? Because that is so like subjective to everyone. Like you might have an attention on someone on a TV screen for 30 seconds, but are people actually listening to the message or do they have it on mute?
Yeah,
So yeah.
great question. Look, the war is for attention. Let's just be clear. It doesn't matter if it's guy versus guy and girl trying to get attention. It doesn't matter if you're trying to get hired. It doesn't matter if you're a creator and you're trying to generate more views and more subscribers to your platform. It doesn't matter if you're trying to drive ratings up for a TV show. It doesn't matter if you're trying to get people to buy merch because you're the Dallas Cowboys. The war is for attention, period. If you don't have it, the value of what you are offering in market automatically diminishes. That is the equalizer. So the fact that we're measuring it, we should have been measuring it from the beginning. The whole idea of viewer completion rate was there enough attention that it was actually being viewed? Was there enough attention that it was worth being clicked on? Once we start to unpack whether these vanity metrics mean something or not, we still come back to a basic premise, and that the fact is the war is for attention. But when I look at it, attention's on a spectrum. There are a series of things that say that they have my attention. It's literally the eye tracking that I'm staying with it, the lack of viewer attrition that I didn't fall off, walk out of the room, click and turn it off. The fact that I've engaged it one way or another, whether it's a like, a follow, a reply, what have you, whether it is a transactional mechanism that is actually clicking, or if I'm a non-clicker, but I go and put the website into the browser because I'm actually interested in the product. My thing is the attention factor is the halo. And then it's also one of the series of KPIs. So when I look at measurement, I look at a spectrum for which attention is the governing aspect of it, but it is a KPI that sits at the end of it. At the end of the day,
Mhm.
are we actually garnering attention where people are seeing and staying with the message? Because if you get attention, you can get influence. Influence can get you power, and power can make you money. The most desired brands covet our attention. Louis Vuitton, Gucci, Chanel, Ferrari. We are not paying attention to these brands at a high rate of speed, whether we can ever afford them or not. I think that people need to get very serious about the umbrella is around attention. And there are a series of things that tell you and dimensionalize to what degree you're getting it, to what degree there's real intent for your brand, and to what degree someone will actually transact and buy what you're selling.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of good points. And as I alluded to earlier, you are a summit veteran. So you've been to our summits for a number of years. You've been to many of them. The next question from our viewers is, what is your favorite destination that you've traveled to with Media Post? Also, what is your favorite vertical for the summit? So like TV or digital out of home. I know you've gone to those, but which is your favorite?
Wow. Favorite destination? I think I'm going to say Tahoe for its sort of peace, serenity, tranquility, and it's a beautiful place on earth. So to do a summit on the backdrop of Lake Tahoe was very nice, very surreal. I think the summits are always well programmed. You guys have a habit of kidnapping people and getting them to kind of these remote locations where they
Hmm.
can really take in not only the summit but the sights, scenery. Austin is always a good time because Austin city limits. I mean, look, you couldn't better juxtapose a conference and what's happening in a major city, a good entertainment, live music city. Those would be probably my favorite two. I guess if I had to look at the favorite summit, I've done probably the TV video inside of the most, just because the amount of background I have in all things
Hmm.
CTV. But I like the ones like the digital out of home ones that sort of break new ground, start a new narrative, enter new conversations where people can reframe not a new industry, but look at it through a new lens. I think
Hmm.
those are the ones that tend to be, relatively key, just in terms of the collaboration, the people, the spirit of let's innovate here, let's try something different. So it's hard to just pin it down to just one in particular, but I love the ones that sort of breaking sort of new ground, new conversations, new players in the room to
Mhm.
really sort of expand the aperture around the market conversation.
That's great to hear. And no, we did not kidnap people. We put you guys in a in a in a we put you guys in a family retreat, like well, not family, adult retreat. I will
Yeah,
say. So
no,
I,
absolutely.
I would not say that we kidnap people. I will say Lake Tahoe is amazing though. So
Yes,
if any of you guys ever get a chance to go out there, do the horseback riding. It's a lot of fun.
absolutely.
And yeah, like it's always exciting to do the new summits as well to see what's out there and get you guys on stage and talk about innovations. So yeah, that's great. All right, so we're part of the program where I will ask you some rapid fire questions.
Okay,
Remember, quick answers only. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
Great. So what is a campaign that you wish you worked on?
Probably the Waza campaign. I mean, I think it was to have all the international mix of people saying "What's up"
Mhm.
between urban culture, Latino culture. I think there was somebody who was Russian, might have been Ukrainian there. I think that still transcends. I still have some people that when I pick up the phone will say that just for kicks and giggles. And look, that campaign is probably 20 years old, but I think it just transcends the idea of different cultural adaptations, but it's still everyone's still speaking from like the same perspective. It still tracks the same. It's still a connected tissue, but done projected from each respective region, respected language. And I think that's just massive. I don't know what kind of work and or how often we will see work like that again.
I so was what brand was it? Because I missed that campaign. Was it
Boost
like
Mobile.
sorry?
Boost Mobile.
Oh, Boost Mobile. And everyone was saying what's up, but was in different languages or was it all in
Yeah.
English?
No, different language.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah,
I'm
someone
gonna
said
check
it.
that out.
Somebody was Japanese.
Ah,
I think somebody was Russian. Somebody was
yeah,
Latino. Said it in Spanish. Somebody
yeah.
obviously black.
Mhm,
But yeah, that was like that was super creative. And you got to remember, this was done in the early era. If you look at the last 20 years of creative and ideas, where there was less degrees of separation between people, where you could look and appear into others' cultures and come up with everything. So that level of insight before social media was really a thing,
mhm.
but when the internet was still Web one, I mean that's pretty substantial just in terms of when you look at the impact of that, its viability, how it transcended, and the fact that people still mess around with it.
Mm,
Yeah,
very cool.
yeah.
I just thought of I forgot what movie they say what's up. That's obviously from the pop culture. I forgot what movie, but I'm just thinking about that scary mask. So, but yeah. All right. So then the next question is, what is the most underrated marketing channel out there?
Ooh, under SMS.
SMS, yeah.
SMS, because mobile device is on our phone. I mean, in terms of the instances where we look at our phone, what we probably look at it between these Google micro moments that they coined a decade ago, I don't know, 200 times a day. Most of it we're looking at is text message. So
Okay.
when you start to look at attention, underpriced attention, let's start there.
Mhm.
SMS wins in the underpriced attention war probably more than any mechanism of advertising. And it is an emotional trigger for selling opportunity, because most things that come through SMS is a confirmation code on something that you have to act on immediately because it's expired or it's a flash sale. So it
Yeah.
has an inherent timeliness not only in its delivery, but what you're going to take an action. Same thing if your flight's delayed, you get a text message. And then you decide you rebook or you stay or whatever, or you go eat. So I think
Mhm.
SMS is probably the one that's heavily underutilized, underpriced attention with a high level of effectiveness that lives in a domain that may garner maybe the most attention. The second one I would say is gaming, just
Mm,
because gaming has unaverted attention. It
mhm.
is unacceptable to be distracted while gaming.
Yeah.
You're trying to win, and all your
Mhm.
attention is all in. So yeah, those would be my two. SMS one, but gaming to me is the dark horse that's going to start to come over the horizon.
Yeah, good point. I saw my husband was playing Halo and I think
Okay.
Gatorade or Mountain Dew. Oh my god, I have bad I don't recall. One of them was like sponsoring part of the game and it was like really cool because the whole arena was filled with that product. And
Yes.
yeah, that's hard to ignore. Well, I just have horrible ad recall right now, but I'm pretty sure my husband could tell you which brand it was. Because he was clearly paying attention and I actually happened to see that. So yeah, Very good points. And then all right, so here's the last one. And what is the favorite marketing term that you love to use? Normally I ask that you hate to use, but this time it's a term that you love to use.
It's interesting. It's probably not a marketing term I like to use. I really am more about business terms
Hmm.
because I'm very clear on marketing is designed around business. And my favorite one is business outcomes.
Hmm.
Businesses are in business to make money. If they're not, they're a nonprofit. Nonprofits still have to make money. They just got to break even at the end of the day. And I think my favorite term is really talking about business outcomes because that's what a brand is measured against. Because that's what the chairman of the board is measured against. That's what Wall Street is measuring them against. It's really the business outcomes. And I think when we start to get into even the tariff conversations, people are having to recalibrate the outcomes. The conversation doesn't scare me because the question is, okay, can we still make the same margins we're making? Can we still make the same percentage of profits we're making? Oh, if we can stay the course if the consumer will continue to buy at the same rate of speed. And I think what you find is that when people don't understand business outcomes, they don't understand the impact of things like tariffs or inflation or product recalls or COVID. So the industry is messing around with a lot of language that's useless to a client instead of
Hmm.
speaking the language of the check writer. That's probably the other term I use second most. Speak the language of a check writer. Money is cut based on certain linguistics. When they
Hmm.
align, there's opportunity for somebody to release that money. When what you're saying doesn't align with the language of the check writer, you're not getting any money.
Mm. Excellent points. Very good points. This interview has been very insightful. So thank you, Albert. Thanks so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and thank you to the audience to tuning in. If you have any questions or would like to be featured yourself, contact me at barbie@mediapost.com. Take care.